All right. Well, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to day 3 of Secret Path Week. As we gather today, we are reminded that throughout Canada, we are situated on Indigenous lands, both ceded treaty and unceded land. This land is steeped in rich Indigenous history and home to many First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people today. As a country, we have a responsibility for the stewardship of the land on which we live and work. So today, I acknowledge the Mississaugas of the Crete, First Nation of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the Neutral people on whose territory I broadcast from today. My name is Joe Grabowski, and I'll be your host for today. I run an organization called Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. We connect classrooms across North America with scientists, explorers, adventurers, and conservationists for live events. Check out exploringbytheseat.com, and you can find 40, 50, even 60 live events each month for your classrooms to join and learn along with. So this is our 3rd year collaborating with the Gord Downie and Chanie Wenjack Fund to bring Indigenous leaders, artists, and scientists live to classrooms across Canada. We have an incredible week in store consisting of 20 live events, including musical performances, language lessons, storytelling, and so much more. The Gord Downie and Chanie Wenjack Fund is part of musician Gord Downie's legacy and embodies his commitment and that of both the Downie and Wenjack families to build cultural understanding and create a path towards reconciliation between Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples. So the goal of the Downie Wenjack Fund is to continue the conversation that began with Chanie Wenjack's residential school story and to support the reconciliation process through awareness, education, and action. So many of the classrooms joining us live today are already doing something. They're legacy schools, legacy classrooms. If you haven't heard of this program before, it's a free national initiative to engage, empower, and connect students and educators to further reconciliation through awareness, education, and action. So if you visit downeywenjack.ca, you can find out all about the program and learn how to join us. So we've got a great event kicking off today. We have Arden Ogg joining us. She's the founding director of the Cree Literacy Network. In 2010, she envisioned the Cree Literacy Network as a means of creating connections among speakers, teachers, and students of Cree across the prairies. They were officially incorporated as an Indigenous non-for-profit in 2011. We also have Solomon Ratt joining us. He has shared many glimpses of his youth through traditional or original short stories written in Woodlands Cree and published on the Cree Literacy Network. He's a veteran of residential school who went on to study at the Regina campus of the University of Saskatchewan. And his goal is to support and engage aspiring Cree speakers and readers in the classroom and beyond, using every trick in the book, from storytelling to writing to recordings and karaoke and drawings and photography that he provides and shares with people. So I'm going to bring Saul in right now. Saul, if you want to unmute and say hi to us, we're so happy to have you joining us today.
Unmute me. There we go. Okay. That's
right.
That's a gakyo. Kimâmawinikonaw. Kimâmawinikonaw. Going to tempt. The women that ask you up with the gig. The women that ask you up with the wow. I'm a choice more in a question either guy. You're going to get to Michigan or take Stepinanek. I mean, how it's going to have to go. Kayas. Negutasiga get that to Pepunian. You could speak, you could take a magic from Dawian. You're going to go big and you're going to get a Kisnamax and Chickasnama to Gamegok. Kayaso Chigabi Kisnamagian, Uta, Skanagas Tig. Hello, everyone, students, teachers, and relatives. My name is Solomon Ratt. I am originally from Standard Mission. And at the age of 6, I went to the residential school in Prince Albert and got my education through there. Went to university and ended up teaching at the university. I like to say that I got stuck at the university. I'm still here. And I've been teaching since 1984, full-time since 86. And I've done a lot of teaching with introductory classes. And my main focus lately has been the stories of my people, of the Cree people, traditional stories and stuff. And of course, creative writing.
All right. Well, Saul, we're obviously thrilled to have you with us today, and thank you for sharing that greeting in both languages. I think it's so important to be preserving languages because students might not know that they're disappearing around the world.
That's right. And it also gives you an experience of what I faced when I went to residential school. I was surrounded by English. I didn't understand a word of English when I went first to school. And so, you know, like here I started with Cree. The majority of you didn't understand what I was saying. That will give you an idea of what I faced when I went to residential school. I did not hear words that I understood for the longest time.
All right. Well, Saul, you're going to share a story with us in Cree, and Arden is going to do the English translation. But maybe before we jump into the story, can you kind of expand a little bit on your residential school story and just tell the students a little bit of what that experience was like?
Okay, the story we're going to read is called Dog Biscuits. And basically, it's a story about bullying and how I experienced bullying at the school by my classmates, dorm mates and all that stuff, and how I try to get out of it. And but it was at the residential school for night lunch. You know, like you guys would go have a nice lunch before going to bed, right? Make a little sandwich or something like that and have that stuff and have a nice little snack before you go to bed. In our case, at the residential school, we just got one biscuit, which we call dog biscuits. They're actually hardtack or pallet biscuits for some people. And this is all the lunch we had to see us through to the next morning. And we're always hungry. And but one of the things I liked about residential school was that we had movies on Saturday. We had movies every Saturday. And we'd always play out the movies of everything we saw. And sometimes this is the only exposure to culture I had, you know, like I've known Arden since 1985, 86 and stuff like that, you know, and I have not yet seen her break out into song and dance like they do in musicals. You know, this is my world this is the world I was exposed to, the movies. Are these the way that these people live? How come they haven't broken out into song and dance? At any time, Arden hasn't broken out into song and dance yet, you know, so like that, you know, but this is a new world. It's like going into a new world. I come from the northern area where I never saw TV, where I never saw cars, and I got exposed to the residential school with TV. My eyes were wide open when I saw this little TV in the room and cars everywhere. That freaked me out. I mean, it was a new world altogether. And this is a lot of people don't understand that it is like going to a different world when we got to the residential school. And maybe sometime Arden will break out into song and dance the next time I see him to see that these musicals are real, you know, like, but the thing is, musicals, they're not real, right? Nobody breaks out into song and dance. Well, I didn't know that. This is the world I got exposed to.
All right. Well, I can definitely see those challenges, hearing English only, kind of being exposed to movies as your kind of your glimpse of the Western world. I can see it would be definitely tough adjusting to that. And so I'd like to get Arden. Arden, if you want to unmute and say hi, I think it'd be great to have you say hi right now, and then we can jump right into the story because from what I've heard, it's a great story, and I'm looking forward to hearing it.
Okay. Tan si Arden Ogg nitziga son Winnipeg ochzi, nêhiyawêwin noch kumak egwa nimosom Scotland osi, ki peototo hewak maga Freda Ahenakew ban egwa Ottawa simsa, maskego sagaiga nechgochtsi, niki wakote hekwak. Kitatamiskat nawau nitotem tik. I struggle a lot. My name is Arden Ogg. I'm not a Cree woman. I'm from Winnipeg. My grandparents came from Scotland, but the late Freda Ahenakew and all of her children from Muskeg Lake in Saskatchewan took me as part of their family. I greet all of you, my honored friends. So obviously I'm not a real Cree speaker like Saul is, but I've been working at it for a long time, and I'm trying very hard, because I agree with Saul and with Joe about the importance of maintaining Indigenous languages. These are the original languages of Canada, and they are at risk of disappearing. And we have the opportunity. The only way to bring them back is by speaking them. So I feel that that's a really important thing.
All right, excellent. Well, I think it's time. Let's hear the dog biscuit story. I'm excited. And then we can spend a little time maybe learning a little bit of Cree together.
We go say niga chimon. Spiega ge was Syria nagin to ay Michigano bimi disco neganeko che. Kistabana nekman nagagin to ay Michigan, iguta residential school negito. Iti tehigawian. Mr. Hemana nigi kitmahigawinan. Naga namudan iagon nuiatutin. Nuiachimawak nichik kitmagisak. Nichik mahaganak. Pardon.
When I was a child, I went to residential school away from my reserve. It was at Prince Albert where I went to school. There was a residential school there where I went. There was a lot of ill treatment, but I'm not going to talk about that. I'm going to tell a story about my fellow pitiful ones, my fellow students.
Papaskis mana nagi kitidamigawinan. Piagan kay tahto punya isikitidamigawiyak. Igamana tiska misagitisik na pisak kika kitamahiwak anahinapisan na wach kapsis silt. Igamina ki danot nituak na pisak mahtawina na wach kamaskawisid.
We were kept separate from each other. According to age, we were kept that way. Some boys who were bigger than the rest would be mean on the smaller boys, and they'd fight amongst themselves to see who was the strongest. This was the way of it.
Igsumagagi at the cake. And then I was kamaskawisid first boss kitaw. Igamina gutak second boss. Igamina gutak third boss. Nidawida last boss. Others gi apsis ya nego mina igi bawanis ya nego spimina. Mananto kiam nikiti tin mana with a mana nistigi dana tamawit.
The one who was the strongest we called first boss. The next was second boss, and another was third boss. Me, I was last boss because I was small and skinny even then. It didn't matter. No worries, I thought, because I had an older brother to look out for me.
Piago napises gipagwatik. Kapima negi gakuinutnet. Nagagigustion stisa. Nigi paspan. Piaga skimana nistis namajkipi toy ayamichigo. Ay. Nigi gustachen. Nigi gustawa wa napises kaguinutnet. Ochitapagutagagui kaskimak and a first boss and a tamawit.
There was this one boy who disliked me. He always tried to fight me, but he was afraid of my older brother, so I was safe. One year, my older brother didn't come to school. Uh-oh. I was afraid of that boy who always tried to fight with me. I would have to try to convince the first boss to look after me.
Frank Mr. Sigag Nigaisulika Tawa Napis Kagi Kaguinotnet. You got Joseph Mistiki asked Nigai Tawana first boss.
I will call that boy who tried to fight me Frank Big Skunk. And Joseph Big Gull is what I'll call the first boss.
Nigi Aya we hamana and a first boss. Nicomic Pokema, Nigomana Nigi Kagui Sutamawa, Tatus Tautaska Tamawak, Tatuskivina. Itamana Maga Ki at the way they tam kakito, Ki Goy. A woman Nisu with me too in a Gagi. It is a hamwak Tatagagi Mitswak. Hey, Nigi at the one idiot in a kita the way Nigam Gachit Nigana Frank Mr. Sigag. Dance Smagom at the gate to the man.
So I would lend my comic books to first boss. And I also promised I'd do his work for him. Unfortunately, he rejected everything, even that dessert that I'd send him every time we ate. Hey, I began to be in a fuddled state of mind because eventually Frank Big Skunk would catch me. What would I do then?
Tahto tips kama na imo ikaw smoya digi sa may kawinan mana piak im tigitit biscuit. Koyas mana nigi whisky pa wiago. Dog biscuits mana nigi slikatan anak piago biscuitak.
Every night before we went to bed, we were fed one big biscuit. I really liked the taste of that biscuit. We called those biscuits dog biscuits.
How? Piago nigi itasahamwa Joseph mistiki aski agone kim lirehtam nigi atennipan hikuspi I nohtigatian naga nigi chikirihtin naskigo ane igaskimak Joseph mistiki ask na tamawit ispiana Frank mistigag kaginotuncha nigo ane igaspio sig that to dipskau das itasahamwa Joseph mistiki ask the dog biscuit tema. The more that was me nigi gostau Frank Mr. Sigag.
Okay, once I sent that Joseph Big Gull a biscuit, he liked it. I began to sleep then, hungry but happy because I was successful convincing Joseph Big Gull to look out for me when that Frank Big Skunk tried to fight me. There, from then on, every night I sent my dog biscuit to Joseph Big Gull. I was no longer scared of Frank Big Skunk. I did that for a while.
Pirates, cowboys and Indians. The Great Escape.
Every Saturday, we watched a movie, and when we finished watching, we would role play those movies, copying the movie that way. Pirates, cowboys, and Indians, everything. We copied it all. Once we saw The Great Escape.
Iwa wada we tawi chigwasi na mane ki hoche ki tahtawi Joseph Mistigias kabinaset.
Uh-oh. That night, a little after we went to bed, I heard boys climbing out the window. All of a sudden, Joseph Big Gull came to get me.
How? Hastam, we show an.
Okay, come on, come with us, he says to me.
No, I get that. Was I not going negapits at this hog in the town? New Alba, Denki, Michiminat, Maskemos Sekisa.
Not even. My father will only send me back, I say to him. I see he's holding something. It looks like a small bag.
Kigo anima in the town. Hamak, Maskimojas.
What's that? I say to him, pointing to his bag.
Nêhiyawêwin it do dog biscuits. You got us bin Gawadawi was in a manic.
This is my lunch, he says. Dog biscuits. Then he was off out the window.
Iguane, Squire Jiggy Wapmak. Kaskawana Ganapi Sagagi, the Basijak, Gawigi Pito Tahawak, Nagana March, Joseph Mr. Kiask.
That's the last I ever saw of him. All the boys got brought back, but not Joseph Big Gull.
You speak at Tips Skag. Na watch, na March Nigeo Chinipan. You gave Stawana Frank Mr. Sigag.
That night I didn't sleep. I was afraid of Frank Big Skunk. Exit.
There you go, sir.
So that's the end of our story. That's the end of Saul's story. I like it because of the dog biscuits, but I think it kind of nods to Cheney Wenjack and the whole escape experience, as well as the movies.
Absolutely, and it really illustrates Again, some of those challenges and just how some of those movies also influenced the students as well. You know, getting that idea for the Great Escape from residential school from the movie they'd watched earlier.
Mhm.
All right. Well, Arden, I would love if you would spend a few minutes and just tell us a little bit more about the Cree Literacy Network before we do some question and answer action.
Sure. I feel like I should sing zippity doo dah, zippity hey, just for Saul. But I'll try and contain myself. One moment, and if you'll give me the link, I will share my screen, and I'm going to show you a little bit about the Cree Literacy Network.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have we got it?
Perfect. Looks good.
Okay, so this is the Cree Literacy Network. This is the organization that I created along with some of my Cree-speaking friends and the teachers and students across the Prairies, because we mostly focus on the Cree that's spoken in the Prairies, but the Cree language is spoken virtually all across Canada, from the Rockies all the way over to Labrador, up to the Territories and down into Montana even. The page I've got open has the story that we just read about dog biscuits. And there's a picture for you of one of the dog biscuits. If you go to buy them in the store, I'm told they're only sold in Eastern Canada. They come from Newfoundland, and they're called, another name for them is pilot biscuits or hardtack. It's a kind of a survival food. It provides a lot of energy, and it's very compact and very durable. So these are not Oreos. These are really basic, hard cookies that are really good dipped in milk if you have milk. But that's sort of what they look like. Anyway, if you look down the page, if you scroll down the page, you'll see exactly the story that Saul just read, written in Cree. And there's the English that I read that's in brown underneath. But this link here, which looks a little bit funny, but it still works, is the audio. So if you would like to hear the story again, all you have to do is open this page at the Cree Literacy Network, or look for dog biscuits in the search link, and it'll pull up. There's actually two versions of the story here. One is in the TH dialect, which is the dialect that Saul spoke when he was a little child. And the other one is in Y dialect, which is more commonly spoken in the area where Saul has taught most of his adult life. So the Cree Literacy Network is free. It's a free resource for anybody. It's a kind of a library of materials in Cree. Many of them have audio. Much of the audio is provided by Saul, and many of the stories are provided by Saul. But it also includes, you know, some of the significant events in Cree contemporary history, like when the first hockey game was broadcast in Cree. We've got links to that and some clips from that sort of thing. We've got a lot of things about activism. So we have songs. For example, Buffy St. Marie's songs, some of which Saul has translated into Cree. So some of them are sung and some of them are just spoken, because some of Buffy's songs are pretty complex to translate. But this is the kind of resource that we try to provide. There are songs for kids and poetry and photos and memes, all kinds of things that anybody is welcome to grab and use and learn a bit. You can learn a bit anywhere you jump in. And I think we agreed that maybe it would be cool to try to learn a little bit about how to introduce yourself in Cree, because that's what Saul and I did when we started out this morning. And maybe I'll open the link. I've got a link here to, let's see, if you go, I don't know how to navigate my own page. Here we go. We'll go to the home page here. And there's a welcome. And then there's a list of the latest fonts, the latest events. There's a poem that Saul wrote this week. If you'd like to see that and hear that, you click on that link. This one here, maybe I hope, Saul, you don't mind that I'm going to announce that Saul was recognized by the government of Saskatchewan with the Saskatchewan Order of Merit just this week. That's kind of a really big deal. So I'm very excited for Saul and send him my congratulations, because that's a really important thing. The Lieutenant Governor of Saskatchewan will give him the award. She's the representative of the Queen. So this is the highest award that anybody can be given in Saskatchewan. And I happen to think Saul really deserves it. So I think you'll think so too as you look around on here and find some of the resources. But here's the link that we talked about sharing. It's introducing yourself in Cree. Saul, you want to tell them what your shirt says there?
It says a was.
A was. What does a was mean?
A was means go away.
Okay. So if you scroll down this page, pardon me?
Or go on. If somebody's teasing you, you could use a was.
A was.
Go on.
A was, go on. Yeah. So on this page,
like
there's sorry.
Like I like teasing you. That's what you could tell me. I was.
I was. Okay, and then I could tell you, you would know I would tell you, I know you're teasing me. Okay, so we have an audio file that you can listen to where Saul is just doing his introduction himself and doing the bits, but he also did this PowerPoint presentation where he breaks it down into really slow steps. So maybe we could go through, I don't know, Saul, if we can go through the whole thing. It's 4 minutes. Maybe we could just go through the first couple of minutes of it. Would you like to me to play the presentation, or would you like to teach people live?
Let's go live, because the presentation might not come through.
Okay.
All right. I just want to jump in here quickly and just say to the classrooms who are tuning in to try it out on your end, to try and learn the greeting on your end.
Yeah. So I'll push play on this PowerPoint, but I'll leave it muted.
Yeah.
So
Play and see what happens.
Okay.
If the audio comes through, then I don't have to read live.
Oh, I've just muted the audio.
Okay.
Danse,
Solomon to say Carson. Danse. Danse. Hello. Nete. Siye. Carson. Solomon to say Carson. Amateurismo in Gayate. I am originally from Stanley Mission. Oh, che. Nia. Ka. Ya. Te. Stanley Mission. Oceania Gayate. Amateurismo in Gayate. Can I guess a stay in me guys in Wigan? I live in Regina right now. Uskana ka sas tege me quach ne we kin. Uskana ka sas tege me quach ne Wigan. I am a teacher. Okis kinna hama keu nêhiyawêwin. Okis kinna hama genia. I am 61 years old. Sure, done 6 years ago. Nete, tahto, pipo, nan. Nagutasa ko matanaw, niti tahto pipo nan. I just lied to you. Kaya tayo pipo na speak agin ni Tawigian. Just the beginning of winter when I was born. Ki ate pipon. Speak kage neta wige yan. Kaya tayo po speak kage neta wige yan. Eko pewe pesa man tipskin. I have a birthday in November. Eko pewe pesa mana nitip piskin. Ich kopieer bese manan typiskin. Niin sitten now neo saa piagi mehti ich kopieer bese manan typiskin. My birthday is on November 24th, sometimes on the 23rd. Agge mehti besem mana nette piskin. Agge mehti. Ich kopieer bese mana nette piskin. My choice for more than anything in Dawigan. I was born in Stanley Mission. Ma chiwis bimo winik nigi nita wigan. Ma choice more than anything in Dawigan. Ma choice more than anything I stop in a nigi pay off begin. I grew up in Stanley Mission in Prince Albert. I got gesta benanik ni pay off again. Okay. I got gesta benanik ni pay off again. My granddaughter drew that picture.
Very cool. Well, that is Arden and Solomon. It's such a great resource that you've created through the Cree Literacy Network. I took a little time to go through some of it. There's great videos and instructions just like this, and stories, all kinds of things that classrooms can use to learn a little bit of the language. And you know, it's very intimidating when you look at it first and you hear it and you see the way it's spelt, but the way you break it down makes it really easy to kind of go through step by step and learn something like how to introduce yourself.
Joe, we should get an introduction. Isn't usually quite that long. I mean, that's a really long form of introducing yourself. It can be quite short. We could get you, Joe, to say your name. Maybe we could just give you the first page of that. Here, we'll just go that far. You could introduce yourself by saying Tansi.
Tansi.
Joe.
Nitsikason.
There you go.
Joe Nitsikason. It's not bad.
Hello, my name is Joe. So
right.
Anybody can copy, follow along with that. And with Saul's audio model, it really helps to build confidence about pronunciation and stuff like that.
All right. I think that at the very least, our students can go home and when they see their family tonight, say Tansi and introduce and say hi to their family in Cree. I think that would be really cool.
Yeah.
Tanasi. Very cool.
Yeah. So just this first page would be a great tidbit to take away today.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Saul and Arden, what do you think? Should we meet a few students and see if they have a couple questions?
That would be great.
Excellent. Excellent.
I'm going to hit stop share here.
Perfect. You're back. So if you're tuning in via YouTube today, I can watch the chat. So feel free to send a question or two via the chat. Let us know where you're watching from. But for now, I'm going to start off with a couple of our on-camera classes. So let's see. Our first group joining us today is, there they are, Mr. Andrews' class. They are joining us from Orillia, Ontario. Looks like a grade 6 class. Mr. Andrews, if you'd like to unmute, we'd love to grab a question.
Perfect. I've got one of my students just coming up to ask you a question.
Hi, grade 6s. How are you?
All right, come on in, Sam. Camera's right there. Yeah, you're good to go.
How long did it take for you to learn Cree?
Cree was my first language. I did not learn English until I was 7 years old.
What about you, Arden?
Well, I'm a slow learner. I didn't start learning Cree until I was in university, and I'm still struggling along. But you know what? It helps a lot to be starting as a kid, and because your mind is more open to learning languages before you're about 40 or so, and kids absorb language like a sponge. So if you can find an environment where you've got somebody to speak with, that's your best opportunity for working and listening and learning quickly.
All right.
Thank you.
Great question. So we'll come back, Mr. Andrews. We'll see if you have another question, but let's go now. Where should we go? Ms. Hopkins' crew is joining us in London, Ontario, some grade 4-5 students. So if you want to unmute and say hi, Ms. Hopkins' crew, and then we'll grab a question.
Hello, he's just coming on up. Okay, so Moose, you can.
Hi, everyone.
You can
How long did you stay in residential school?
I was there from the time I was 6 years old until I was about 14, 15. And then I went to a boarding out program just outside the school where I lived in that family home for my high school. So altogether, I was away from my parents for 13 years, except every month, every summer I'd go back and live with my parents for 2 months of the year. And because my parents spoke nothing but Cree, I was able to keep my Cree language.
All right. We'll come back your way, Ms. Hopkins, see even another question. And I was just thinking, Saul, about the hardtack. And I read a lot about that. I've read a lot of stories about how sailors, you know, crossing the sea and exploring, and hardtack was something that was very much a part of their diet.
Yeah.
Yeah, very
cool. I had to do research on that too. There's a few of us that went to residential school that still talk about that.
Yeah.
And how good they are, how tasty they are. That just goes to show you how hungry we were at all times. You know, when you're a hungry person, anything you eat tastes good.
Yeah, well, I hope it was a little different for you. I remember reading stories where after months at sea, they'd have to tap their hardtack first and the weevils would fall out. The little. So,
yeah.
I hope yours hadn't been sitting for that long.
No, my word.
All right. Let's see. Canoe Narrow, Saskatchewan. We've got some grade 9 students joining us from there. If you'd like to unmute for us, Mr. Favo, we'd love to grab a question. I think someone's coming up now. Huh. Mr.
I think
Favo.
I think that sounds like Cree country that they're coming from. I think Fable is a good Cree name.
Yeah. Mr. Favo, I'm so sorry. The microphone's unmuted, but we still can't hear. Do you want to type a question into the chat for us? If you could, there should be a little chat option down at the bottom. If you type a question in there, I'm sorry, the audio is not cooperating, but it's great to have a group joining us from Saskatchewan. And Saul, I think I told you I was born in Moosomin, Saskatchewan.
Oh yeah.
I visited Port Albert and further up Candle Lake and all kinds of places around Saskatchewan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But if you type that question for us, Mr. Favo, a question or two, we'll definitely work that in. I know we've got Miss Murray's class hanging out with us. They're in Aurelia, some 6th
Chad, were you a
graders.
student of mine?
Sorry?
Chad, were you a student of mine?
We'll have to get Chad to type us a oh, here we go. I see some messages coming in from.
He was a student of mine. Definitely.
If he knows about the Sasquatch t-shirt.
Yeah, if he knows about the Sasquatch, he was a student of mine.
Very cool.
You can go ahead online and find Sasquatch t-shirts online anywhere.
Yeah, he says.
My daughter's really good at finding these things for me.
One of Saul's nicknames is Saul Squatch.
Saul Squatch, very cool.
If you look behind my shoulder there, you can see that medallion, Sasquatch medallion hanging on the globe.
Oh, careful. Very cool. Saul Squatch. That's a pretty cool nickname.
Yeah. One of my students made this for me.
Very cool. Well, Mr. Favo, if your class has any questions, please do type something into the chat for us. Mrs. Murray's group, if you'd like to unmute, we'd love to grab a question.
There's a question I have to answer from.
Yeah, go for it.
The question is, Solomon, did they have to cut your hair when you went to residential school? Oh yeah, they cut my hair. I was as bald as I am now.
All right, that was from Mr. Andrews' class. But Mrs. Murray, if you want to unmute, we'd love to grab a question from your class.
All right, we have a student coming up here to the front to ask a question.
Excellent.
How do you say what is your name in Cree?
Oh, good question.
Danse guy te kasun. Danse guy se kasun.
Tanse.
Guy se kasun. I'm going to write it down in chat there.
Perfect. Yeah. Can you say that one more time for us, Saul? I'm going to try and say it along with you.
Slow.
Danse guy se kasun. Danse guy se kasun.
Okay, very cool.
Okay.
Yeah, that's great.
Grade 9 wants to know what Saul does for a living. I play tricks on my students all the time. I'm a teacher. I'm a professor at First Nations University of Regina.
All right, that's great. How long have you been teaching, Saul?
Since 1984, I was part-time, 84, 85, and then 1986 I came on full-time. And I've been full-time since 1986, sorry.
All right. Well, we have time to work in maybe a couple more questions. So if you have another one in your class, give a big wave and I'll know to ask you to unmute. I think I see lots of hands in Ms. Hopkins' class. So we'll let them unmute and grab another question for us.
Love that.
While we wait for them to unmute, Arden, what first got you into the Cree language? What interested you and kind of hooked you?
I was studying music and I started going to powwows and hearing all of the powwow music. But I was also really interested in language all along. So when I started studying linguistics at university, those things connected, those things came together for me. And I met a wonderful woman named Freda Ahenakew. And she was the kind of Cree woman who spotted people who needed mothering, and she brought them into her life and into her family, and she brought me into her family. So I have 12 siblings that are all her children who are from Saskatchewan, from a Cree family. So I got to learn very early what it was like to be part of a Cree family.
All right, very cool. Mrs. Hopkins, we're ready for you.
Okay.
Do you know how far away your home was from the residential school?
That's for Solomon.
No, what I missed that.
We'll let her ask again.
Do you know how far away your home was from the residential school?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, Saul, she's asking how far was the residential school from your home?
Okay, that just it seemed like 1,000,000 miles away, but actually it's only 300 kilometers away from my hometown. And
yeah,
this is back in the old days, in the early 1960s, and so the roads weren't as good as they are now. Like you could go from Laurent to Prince Albert in 2.5 hours today. Back in 1960, it took us 4 hours to make the trip on gravel road. So
yeah, a long way to be from your family, and as a young boy, it would have felt even further.
Yeah.
Mr. Andrews' class says they have a question. If you want to unmute, we'll grab that question.
Hey, Serenity, you're up.
Okay, sorry, I was on the floor. My question is, how do you say I like flowers in Cree?
Tin Wapigonia.
Okay, I'm not.
I think he's going to type into the chat for us as well.
Okay.
While he's typing, I want to say something about the spelling. One of the things that is a really important tool for helping people to acquire Cree and maintain Cree and spread Cree is for everybody to spell the same way, and then we can understand each other. 500 years ago, English didn't spell the same way. There was no standardized spelling in English. And once there were dictionaries and people really started to spell the same way, then literacy in English progressed by leaps and bounds. And this is a really important thing to have happen for Cree. So when Saul does his writing, he's using a standard style of writing that is a tool for making Cree a stronger 21st century language. Did you get it typed yet?
Yeah, I did type it, but I didn't realize that I was on personal link to chat there. So now it's for everybody.
There we go.
Say it again.
For us, Saul.
Pardon?
Could you say it again for us?
Yeah. Nêhiyawêwin wapigonia.
Nêhiyawêwin.
Wapigonia.
Wapikoniwa.
Nêhiyawêwin wapigonia.
Can I try
Thank
it
you so
too?
much.
Yeah, try it out. Ne,
Nêhiyawêwin wapikwania.
that way. Right on.
All right, very cool. Well, Saul and Arden, it's been an absolute pleasure to spend a little time with both of you today, to hear your story, to share a little bit of your residential school story. You know, these stories aren't always easy to share, but they're so important that they're not forgotten. And it really is a really important part of the healing process to share these stories, especially with our youth. I think a great way to end off today is maybe we could get all the classes to turn on their microphones. And Saul, if you want to teach us how to say goodbye, and maybe that would be a fun way to have all the
There is no word for goodbye. You're stuck with me. There's no word for goodbye in Crete.
word
So
for
you're stuck with me.
Really?
Yeah.
Well,
But what people are saying for goodbye would be egose, which means that's it.
okay.
Egose.
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 Egose. All right. If
Egose.
everyone wants to unmute and let's say that nice and loud, a big.
Egose.
Good say.
All right.
Yeah. Egose.
Egose. Very cool. Well, Saul and Arden, again, what a pleasure having you join us for the events. Thank you to the classrooms on YouTube. Thank you to the classrooms live on camera, and for sending us some great questions as well. Have a great rest of the day. We have lots more events coming up between now and the end of Friday. So we hope to see your classrooms again. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all, everybody.
Hi.